Flash flooding is wreaking havoc in New York City as torrential rain pummels the northeastern U.S. Friday's strong storm has brought flooding and damage to Brooklyn. The emergency responders are on the scene of a partial roof collapse at a warehouse in Lexington Avenue between Classon and Franklin Avenues in Brooklyn. It happened around 8:30 a.m. Fortunately, all workers at the warehouse were accounted for, according to the FDNY. In Windsor Terrace, the FDNY said firefighters rescued a person in danger of drowning in a basement of an apartment building at Sherman Street near Greenwood Avenue. Heavy rain brought flooding conditions at Walton Street between Union and Harrison Avenues. Water have overtaken the sidewalk and appeared to partially flood parked cars there. Significant flooding was reported in southern Brooklyn. Video posted to X also showed flooding near Atlantic Avenue and Pacific Street. A severe storm lodged over the city, and parts of upstate New York, New Jersey and Connecticut, leading to widespread flood watches and warnings. The emergency alerts were sent to cell phones in the city at 9:30 a.m. local time from the National Weather Service. A flash floods warning is in effect for this area until 12:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, it said. This is a dangerous and life-threatening situation. Do not attempt to travel unless you are fleeing an area subject to flooding or under an evacuation order. A travel advisory was issued by city authorities beginning at 4 a.m. on Friday through until 6 a.m. on Saturday, with the potential for widespread travel impacts to the morning commute. Flooding closed roads, disrupted subway service and flooded basements in the New York City area as dangerous and life-threatening. Rainfall overwhelmed the concrete expanse during the Friday morning commute. A month's worth of rain, more than 4 inches, fell over parts of Brooklyn in just 3 hours Friday morning. Intense rainfall rates of 1 to 2 inches an hour were falling across the New York tri-state area and were expected to continue through Friday evening. Dangerous flash flooding is forcing road closures across the New York City metro area. The National Weather Service warned of a considerable flash flood damage threat across New York City. Water on the tracks suspended subway service for multiple lines in Brooklyn. The weather forced the closure of a LaGuardia International Airport terminal as flight delays mounted. 8.5 million people were under flash flood warnings in the New York City area. Floodwater spilling into subways caused major disruptions to subway service on 9 train lines in Brooklyn, the New York Metropolitan Transit Authority announced. Heavy rainfall was also flooding basements in New York City Friday morning, according to New York City Emergency Management. It also overwhelmed sewers and flooded roads in Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens and Hoboken, New Jersey, forcing road closures there, authorities announced. More than 8.5 million people were under flash flood warnings early Friday across portions of New York and New Jersey, the region's National Weather Service office said. A widespread 1 to 2 inches of rain had already fallen across the warning area since midnight, with much more to come. Millions of New Yorkers received alerts from the Weather Service Friday morning warning of a dangerous and life-threatening situation, with a considerable risk of flash flood damage. About 1.19 inches of rainfall at John F. Kennedy International Airport in Queens over an hour early Friday, and as of 10 a.m., the major travel hub had recorded over 4 inches of rainfall since midnight, according to the Weather Service. The flood threat will impact roughly 25 million people across the Northeast Friday, and the New York tri-state area is facing a level 3 of 4 moderate risk for flash flooding, the National Weather Service warned. We urge New Yorkers to prepare for heavy rain and potential flooding throughout Friday and Saturday morning, NYC Emergency Management Commissioner Zach Iskall said. All New Yorkers need to exercise caution. If you must travel, consider using public transportation and allow for extra travel time, and if you must drive, do not enter flooded roadways. The central New Jersey northward to Manhattan, Long Island in New York and into southern Connecticut and the Hudson Valley are expected to see the highest amounts of rain. Meanwhile, neighboring cities of Philadelphia and Boston could see up to 2 inches of rain, while Hartford could collect up to 3 inches or more. Overall, widespread rainfall totals between 2 and 4 inches are expected, but those totals could increase to between 5 and 8 inches in some areas. Ahead of the expected heavy rainfall, the MTA kept all services at its more than 470 stations running Friday. There may be impacts to service, but our plan is to run service everywhere the MTA operates, MTA Chair and CEO John O'Lieber said during a news conference Thursday, acknowledging that water will inevitably creep into some facilities. The MTA has installed drain covers, Lieber said, and will be deploying pump trains and sending crews to strategic locations throughout the transit system. The public transit network has also prepared additional buses on standby to provide supplemental service in case the rail system is hindered by the storm, Lieber added. The flooding impacts may also be exacerbated by the final supermoon of this year, which will occur Friday morning. The event typically creates more extreme tidal cycles that could increase the flood risk along the East Coast. In anticipation of that, coastal flood advisories extend more than 300 miles from Bridgeport, Connecticut, through Virginia Beach. Up to a foot of inundation above ground level is expected in low-lying areas near shorelines and tidal waterways, according to the National Weather Service. Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams were planning a news conference to address the continuing downpour that forced cancellation of her ribbon-cutting appearance at Hostas Community College in the Bronx to unveil new campus facilities. Brooklyn service was also suspended on the F train, and the G train was not running south of Bedford-Nostrand Avenue due to water on the tracks. Flooding has also swamped the Newkirk Avenue, Little Haiti and President Street, Medgar Evers College stations on the 4 and 5 lines, and the 4th Avenue and 9th Street station on the F and G lines. The MTA also suspended northbound service on the B train Friday, after flooding at the Newkirk Plaza station in Flatbush. Rainfall also knocked out the southern end of the N train, with no service between Coney Island, Stillwell Avenue and Kings Highway. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles of coastline from New England to the southeast are on alert as tidal flooding impacts coastal communities from to combined effects of remnants of Tropical Storm Ophelia and king tides from the final supermoon of 2023. The remnants of Ophelia, combined with an approaching upper-level disturbance, is bringing heavy rains and triggering a flash flooding threat for millions in the Northeast and New England into the weekend. Meanwhile, the Forecast Center says that the onshore flow of winds, in addition to the upcoming supermoon, is increasing the coastal flood threat in that region. On top of what's falling from the sky, there are coastal concerns, Merwin said. That's from water being pushed in by strong winds. Winds could gust between 40 and 50 miles per hour along the coast, including Atlantic City on the Jersey Shore, and between 20 and 30 miles per hour in New York City, Long Island, and coastal areas of New England. Those wind speeds could lead to power outages due to some trees being brought down. Coastal flood alerts are in effect along the East Coast from the Northeast to the Mid-Atlantic because strong winds will push water onshore. Add to that the final supermoon of 2023, which will cause higher than average high tides, resulting in coastal communities up and down the East Coast experiencing moderate to major flooding. One of the cities that could see major coastal flooding is Charleston, South Carolina. That city already saw flooding when Tropical Storm Ophelia made landfall in North Carolina last weekend. The Chesapeake Bay is also at risk of flooding as tides run higher than usual and strong winds push large amounts of water farther inland. The coastal flood warnings are also in effect along the coast of southeastern Georgia and northern Florida, including Savannah in Georgia and Jacksonville in Florida. A coastal flood advisory is for nuisance flooding during high tide. You might have a couple inches of water show up, you can drive through it, but you need to be vigilant, Merwin said. A coastal flood warning means you could possibly have 1 to 2 feet of above normally dry ground. That's talking about the difference between this is annoying, and I'm trying to get to work and holy cow. I have water that's surrounding my car, and now I'm stuck. The National Weather Service in Jacksonville is warning residents and visitors that roads may be closed in the region because of the flooding potential, and floodwaters may inundate low-lying buildings, including homes, businesses, and critical infrastructure. Weather Nation, which has nearly 270,000 X-followers, shared a video showing vehicles waiting at a crossover, with water circling around them. They wrote, "This is the scene in Brooklyn where heavy rain has led to widespread flooding. Heavy rain will inundate transportation systems and likely cause flash flooding in some areas today," New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services Commissioner Jackie Bray said. "This means that it will be dangerous to travel, especially by car." Bray said his agency is coordinating deployment of multi-agency flood rescue teams to Hudson Valley and Long Island.
We're seen as a sign that India-Canada ties actually were getting better. Suhasin Haidar is the diplomatic editor of prominent Indian newspaper, The Hindu. FTA is actually supposed to boost India-Canada trade to much higher levels, like